I mean, maybe we should start from, the early years after, getting independence. And our, first, you know, Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, he had actually shown a lot of interest towards like, nation's cultural upbringing. You remember that, he instituted all the academies, Lalital Academy, Sangeet Academy, Sahitya Academy. In fact, he was the first chairperson of Sahitya Academy when he was the Prime Minister of the nation. That's the kind of investment, some of our, early leaders have done in celebrating India's, or, putting a unifying nature to our context. And that idea continues. Reflecting on those kind of ideas, the first education minister, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, who was also investing a lot. You see a kind of a very interesting narrative that which comes from there. From a very, very interesting cosmopolitan Nehruvian understanding about India's cultural legacy, which actually seeps in even till, if you connect it, that lineage is actually that thread, that umbilical cord is something which we have touched in Kochi, taking the promise from there. And also to kind of mend the disruptions that which our society has suffered. So you see that, India was the first nation which started a triennial in the world, which was in 1969 in Delhi, and under the leadership of Nehru, Mulk Raj Anand, many people, Octavia Pass. So we had a tradition, and we continued that. There was a sense also to kind of trigger the cultural economy of the nation. In 1969, if I'm right, or 72, or I'm not sure of the date, there was a ruling, there was an ordinance by the government that 2.5% of the spending of doing any public project or any infrastructure projects should be spent on art. And the only organization I know which has done that is the Bombay airport, the T2 terminus, Rajiv Sethi introduced that project. So then there was many attempts to kind of do a biennial in the country. The attempt was always from people who thought about a larger vision, that how do you, bring a kind of unified nature. So Kochi was also an investment into that thinking that, you create a site where it becomes a site which celebrates India's diversity, multiculturalism, because Kochi is a microcosm of larger nation. So it is, in one way, there are 40 different communities living together in a 4-kilometer square. What else you want? You have a certain heritage of, shared history. You have a larger legacy of, which starts from like, there is an interesting quote which Kesari Balakrishna Pilla, used as a usage is that, is Kerala's, the Rome is part of Kerala's history, or, the Kerala is part of Roman history. In fact, Dilip Menon talks about it a lot. So the idea of, art education is actually not just about like, teaching craft. So what Binale has invested, that by bringing very multidisciplinary art practices from all across the world, we thought it should benefit, not just to change the perceptions by introducing installation. People only knew that painting is art or sculpting is art. So we introduced things like, painting, sculptures, installation, sound art, performance art, there was smell art, there was video installations. The perception was changed. So as much as we are investing so much energy into this exercise of like, celebrating multiple aspects and, multidisciplinary process, why not invite the students to come and join along with the masters? So when we were having, people like, Anish Kapoor showing in Kochi, we had a youngster from Baroda showing his work with a lot of pride that, okay, I'm also part of the Kochi Muziris Biennial as a student's biennial. So it actually sends across a ripple effect that, it helps art students to build confidence to become artists. That was our investment into Students Biennale. Continuing that, going, kind of catching the umbilical cord that where the early visions were there. That was ABC. It started as a students' biennial, children's biennial. Then we called it ABC, Art by Children, because what we did was like, we introduced art classrooms in schools. We selected 100 schools in Kerala, and we were doing workshops with talented artists, performers, theater people to get the children into it. So our slogan was that have art schools. Each and every art institute, every schools in Kerala should have an art class. See, now we have it only in privileged institutions. where the rich children go to study, or we have alternate schools that where it depends on like art as a curriculum to kind of instill creative abilities and like sense of freedom, sense of imagination into students. So it is actually a very important area that we need to have art. Whether it is music, whether it is design, whether it is all any kind of streams, we need to have that in all schools. That was our slogan. That ABC is that. It is actually an investment into your early age as a youngster. So that's been our contribution. But the problem is, to kind of conclude with your last question, is our infrastructure is very poor. What Kochi did was like, Kochi Biennale is a temporary infrastructure which is created. It's not permanent. We need to make contemporary museums. See, we only have museums of like, people who are gone. We have museums like, as archive of the artists who have died. We have, in other countries, we have contemporary museums that which accommodates the work which is happening today. That makes the process of education understand. So we need to archive what is happening today. We need to produce that. Plus the art infrastructure, education infrastructure. We did a survey with FIAE, Foundation for Indian Art Education, and FICA, Foundation for Indian Contemporary Art, which is based in Delhi. We did survey in 80 art institutions all across the country. The survey report, you cannot publish the survey report because it's so poor infrastructure, 45-year-old syllabus, very, a kind of a very bad British hangover. Even the British changed their syllabus in 1967. They made an amendment towards like understanding art because technology was following it. The new age thinking was coming in. The art was changing its dimensions. See, in Kochi, we showed artists like who are poets, who are writers. So we had Anand, one of the famous Malayali writer, who was part of the Kochi Musri's Biennale with some of his, very interesting archaeological thoughts. And he introduced a certain idea of anthropology through his works. So we had Raul Zurita. So I'm saying that, when we introduce projects, any, project can become a site of learning. And in today's time, that's how they should, because we don't have a museum to walk in. We only have, a parachuted biennial in every 2 years, which happens as a seasonal exercise for 4 months. That itself is a learning site. That's one reason I'm saying that we all, all of us have to kind of collectively work towards making our public spaces like friendly for public art. We need to have, so we have a problem with, intangible, heritage, and we memorialize things in a very intangible way. I think time has come that, where we have to create tangible monuments, where we can memorialize our great historic memories. We have legacies, we have legends, we have myths, but we don't have it in the public premises. We need to have a sense of ownership. You go to rural India, you see art as part of their cultural being. But the moment you come to urban spaces, you discard them. So we need to kind of, to all of us has to kind of work together to have public art as a major thing. We need to work on changing the infrastructure in art education establishments. We need to connect, we need to open up. We have 4 institutions in Kerala. Again, similar situation because, the crisis is where the pedagogists, they don't teach concepts better. They don't teach, they force the students to hang around craft. And the parents misunderstand art as craft. So everything ends there. The parents should understand art is not just craft. Then a biology student can become an artist today because there is a premise for that. Because science can communicate. So something which communicates, I would say that, it is doing the purpose of art. The same with everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for that very deep answer. In fact, that's something which I always wanted to ask you. A couple of other questions will be coming your way, but I will just ask one question to Harish, and I'm sure many people wanted to ask this. Harish, your background in, of course, Carnatic music would have helped your career as a singer, but you are also into software engineering, and you said that is helping your funding, that is helping your liberty to choose projects, that is helping your freedom to say yes or no. What about others? Say, for example, if they don't have that parallel, career or passion to pursue, both along, or what if they are not, able to do multitasking like you have been able to? So what is your take on that, Harish?
Thank you for asking. I think first off, I think being able to multitask or being able to do things also is a function of privilege. I think I cannot answer that question without acknowledging my privilege that I was given the kind of education I was given. I was given sort of at the family background I had, and also the kind of things that my parents provided for. A lot of those things came into play that I'm able to claim that I'm able to multitask and do two things together. So the first step for me is to acknowledge that and also identify that a lot of people may not have a similar background or privilege to do what I'm doing. So I think my take on the viability of art is that sometimes, I mean, it's changing right now. Like like Apu rightly mentioned, and even the way Mr. Ashley spoke, I think it's changing as time is sort of passing. And again, when the time my dad was playing art, it was almost like artist was sort of expected to give away his art for free, because there's a natural perception that it is not something that you rightfully honed or created. It's some very divine hand down that came to you, which you don't have any real ownership to. So naturally, your idea to monetize it, or your idea to actually put a price tag around it, or your idea to ask for a fair remuneration for actually presenting your art was severely looked down upon. And even today, I think that sort of stigma still continues. Like, how much should an artist price his art at? Like, how much is his art really worth? Like, it's a problem that exists, which has to be systematically addressed. So the first thing to know for people who are pursuing art is that anything that is a combination of your imagination, creativity, and craft is something that you should monetize. I think like being not comfortable about the idea of monetizing your art will actually set you behind. Like, maybe it is the harder problem for a lot of people, for example, me, which is why I took the easier way out to go into a line of business which is easier to monetize. Like, being in a software job or running your own company, nobody really asks you as to why should I pay you for doing your monthly job. That question never arises. But even today, when I go and say, oh, my concert is going to cost you X amount of money, the natural reaction is to bargain that downwards. So for the people who are actually not able to do multiple things, it's important to understand and value their art to a point where it becomes a viable choice of employment for them. Like, always wondering whether my art is even worth this much. I'll give you an anecdote. During this lockdown, I just started 2 batches of masterclass trying to tell people how I go about music. And I had put a certain pricing. The funniest thing is the biggest sort of opposition to the pricing came from fellow artists. And their point was like, oh, I don't think it is fair that you are charging that much money. There are multiple things that's wrong about it. One is like, the gap in fees actually produces multiple avenues for people, and multiple set of people can actually get into and get educated. The second part is a lot of people do think in the art realm, do think that somebody else's art is not worth that much. So the thinking is not naturally thinking that my art is worth a lot more. Maybe I should bump my price up, or I should actually start valuing my art monetarily at a slightly higher value is a need of the hour. And I strongly believe that artists, because of their very nature as creative people and probably emotional beings, sometimes find it hard to actually name their price when they're actually presenting their art. So the short answer for me is like, it's not important you have to do multiple things to sustain your art. I wanted to share my experience of being able to do that by doing what I do. But if you are just pursuing art, I think it's important to understand the commercial realm of it. It's important to understand how the unit economics of that works, and you should be able to find out ways that you can monetize your art, and thereby then do things that can fund your passion, like how Mr. Sanjay rightly pointed out. Like, it's like his post-graduation, like, the whole fact that he actually went through multiple different dimensions of education, or the way Apu spoke about going through different dimensions of the art itself to kind of keep your general passion viable is important. So I would say that it's important to monetize it, and let me not be prescriptive about that, but not having a vision to monetize your art and just sticking around as art for art's sake, it'll make it a little hard for artists to actually sustain and keep it going for longer. Thank you.
Wonderfully said, sir. Very well said. In fact, it is very important to monetize. That is the underlining argument, I understand. So taking forward, we have to have a question to Mr. Eldo, even though he described himself as the odd man out. I believe that being this session is largely also about students and the future upcoming artists, considering art and craft. I mean that anything to do with art as a 100% career option, which will give them their sustenance and also allow them to do their passion. He's one person, along with his colleagues at Vedatma, who has been guiding a lot of youngsters and convincing their parents. I would say guiding youngsters and convincing their parents. Convincing the parents may be a tougher task. Mr. Eldo can throw some more light on that. I'll ask him a question. But then before that, let us have a small video on Vedatma, because not only because they are the title sponsor, but also because many of the audiences also would want to know what Vedatma actually does in this film. So can we have the Vedatma video here, please?
Vedatma means self-knowledge, and through this in-depth knowledge of self, we help every student become their best. We guide students through this exciting process of self-discovery, helping them find answers to questions like, who am I? What am I passionate about? What are my skills and strengths? This discovery enables them to make an informed choice related to study, streams and careers that are best suited for them, ensuring professional success and personal satisfaction. How does it work? We identify a student's unique natural potential using world-renowned career assessments. This is the convergence of their personality, interest, and aptitude. These assessments can be done online at the student's convenience at home. After these assessments, the student needs to attend 3 online one-to-one counseling sessions with a certified counseling expert. Parents can join as observers. By the end of session 3, we help the student identify his or her unique potential, which in turn helps in choosing the best fit study, streams and careers. Why us? We use world-class assessments like MBTI and strong interest inventory, which are gold standards in career assessments. Unlike group counseling sessions in schools, we offer individual online counseling. We spend over 6 hours spread over 3 sessions with each student, ensuring a highly personalized counseling experience. Who benefits? Students in classes 9 and 10 to select their study streams in +2. Students in classes 11 and 12 to choose college courses. Students in college to select postgraduate courses or their best suited careers. Visit us on www.vedatma.com for more information.
Excellent. So that I'm sure this session and this film combined together will give an answer to most of the questions which most of you, the audience members, may be having after watching this program. So to Mr. Eldo, the question which largely the audience and particularly the whole organizers wanted you to primarily answer is, while counseling the students, how your team and yourself find out this person's interest in arts and related areas, and how do you guide them, and how do you convince the parents that even this also can be a career stream, given the conventional thoughts and given those rigid circumstances that parents may be coming from.
I would want to first say that it's very, it all depends upon that particular situation, right? I mean, the parent-student equations from family to family is very different. I think we all heard some personal stories here. Sanjay, Apuban also said some personal, connection to where. So it's all individualistic. It's all at a personal level, especially I think for kids aspiring to be getting into that world of art. There's an emotional connect there to a lot of things. So I think it all depends upon, there's no ready answer how, we go about convincing a parent-student thing for a particular thing, but it all depends upon, the equation of the parents and the student. But I have to say that, a lot of ways we can help convince the parents is by this. See, we had an educational seminar in the morning, and one thing, and we had a lot of professors from IITs, very eminent academicians. We all agreed on one thing, that is, see, what the world needs today or the world lacks today are not technical skills. It's been proven by umpteen number of research around the world that the world is not lacking in technical skills. It is the behavioral skills that the world lacks. And a lot of organizations are coming out to say that listen, I know the fad now is, coding online, edtech companies are coming with, a lot of skill thing in the tech, in the tech world. But I want to tie up that behavioral skills back into the world of art and, the larger world of art, media, entertainment, all that. See, the behavioral skills needs to be encouraged at the school level. Unfortunately, it is not. When I say behavioral skills, what do I mean? Collaboration, creativity. These are the skills of the future. So if you ask any business, there were a lot of surveys done by IBM around the world, around 50 countries. And you know what the skills were lacking? Collaboration and creativity. It's not the technical skills. So, when you talk about collaboration and creativity, these are the backbones of liberal art education. So when somebody is scared that, your kid is not getting into a technical education like engineering or a profession like medicine, I'm just being very generalized here. The world, it's easier to convince them that actually what the world needs is not those things. It's creativity and collaboration, and the research points to that. And again, I just want to tie in to what I was just saying earlier about liberal arts education. I think Mr. Riaz talked about a survey that was done in all the art colleges around India, and it was abysmal. The results that came, that it didn't really measure up to the education that's needed. What the good thing that is happening in India, especially I would say in the last 5 years, with the advent of some new university that is happening, is the whole introduction of liberal arts education, the university itself being a liberal arts, like I mentioned few names, there is Azim Premji, Flame, there's Ashoka. With the advent of these kind of universities, it's very difficult for people who are not categorized as, let's say, a medical student or an engineering student to decide sometimes what they need to get into. When you don't fit into a category, you don't, right? And you can't you can't suddenly make a decision where you want to fit in. That is where I think this liberal arts education would help, because you can have, what is liberal arts? Like history, economics, psychology, philosophy. You can mix and match these kind of majors and minors, and you don't need to like suddenly jump into that education of, being siloed into a particular stream. And you can be in your first year of college trying to understand where your passion lies, what is it that interests you, and how it relates to the real world of problems, and then kind of decide, along your undergrad course where you want to specialize in. And that, I think, is actually going to change the way parents perceive this whole field as. And I think, that is something that I think the whole focus is, and that's where we are able to convince, to answer your question, we are able to convince, parents, because I understand, especially in Kerala, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know about these new universities that's happening, because everybody's still stuck in their old, frame of mind. Some of the students also don't know. I mean, probably the privileged students probably might know. But otherwise, larger, population, they're just getting used to, understanding what is happening around in the educational field. So this is the way we've been able to convince them. And all liberal education, I think, prepares you for, is not for a job, it's for your life. We've been having an obsession in the educational sector of, preparing you for a job, a career, and not preparing you for life. I think that's what liberal arts education should be about, preparing you for life, and then, breaking down your fixed mindsets, helping you create new mindsets, and go out there and explore and be what you want to be, and then be successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I don't know, I cannot be assuring you about others, but at least me with my teenage daughter will be visiting you very soon.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure about that. Yeah, so that is one thing which we got it from Mr. Eldo. So now moving to Mr. Ashley, you have been a stylist and you have been you are a very famous person as of now. You're standing one day for taking photographs with Salman Khan, the next day probably with Deepika Padukone. But how hard was the journey? How difficult was the struggle? And for somebody else who is aspiring to be there, should they aspire to be there because you are there now? Because the ladder is, I'm sure the climbing up the ladder has been quite tough. And is it not better to stick to their own places, their own geographies, and create opportunities rather than shift to bigger cities and compete with established players in your area of interest? Sir?
Well, actually, I just feel that one should follow their passion and one should follow their dreams, because that's the most important thing as far as any career is concerned. And once you do that, then you're on your way to success and whatever you term as success. But in specification to Kerala, I would say that in today's day and age, even I do a lot of Malayalam movies. I do the clothes for a lot of Malayalam movies for Mammootty, for Rahman, for Rai Lakshmi, for a lot of other, for even Mammootty's production. And I don't see why they have to call somebody from Bombay to do the clothes for somebody in Kerala. When there is opportunity for young aspiring students in fashion or anybody who has a passion for this kind of work, why can't they find it in their own city itself? Maybe they want expertise in certain times and certain ways, but what I do is I'll always take a local student to assist me, because they are going to get me the right fabric, they're going to get me the right everything, the authenticity of everything. And these are the kind of opportunities that help you grow, because you're learning under an established designer, and then you're taking your career forward in this field if you want to be a costume designer or you want to be a stylist. For example, there are 3.6 crore people living in the state of Kerala. Even if you tap on 1% of it, means you're into lakhs and everybody wears clothes. So, it's how you get that opportunity and what you do with it. Of course, online for now is very, very important, because the market is completely online with the current scenario that we are. And I also feel that a lot of the students can get this opportunity, which is free of cost. Whether it's on Facebook, whether it is on Instagram, or whether it is any of your other such, platforms where you're given an opportunity to start a business where you can start small, but you can think big, and you find your USP, your unique selling point, and start with something as simple as like when I went to Kerala the last time, which was about 8 months back, just before the pandemic. I picked up tons of lungis, check lungis, which I created into these beautiful kurtas, and everybody wanted to know, where did I get this fabric from? So I think it's your topography that you have to work with, and that is something that will really help you out in creating a name for yourself, first in your own state and then going elsewhere out. And of course, with social media now, you can be in any place that you want to be, all over the world or anywhere in the world, just by a click of a button. Stationed wherever you are. It could be in a small little city in Kerala, it could be a small little district, it could be anywhere in the world. So, your world is an oyster. So open up and just start for whatever you want to be and whatever you want to pick up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashley. So I'm sure those words would be inspiring to many of them who are watching this live now. Now to Mr. Sanjay. Again, this has been a very. I think most of the questions which we are getting online is also in the same line, where they talk about how easy or how difficult is it to be co-writing with somebody else. Which of course now I am also working on a film, and but then between brothers, how do you divide the job, or how does it happen? How does the research? Who takes up what? You take up the research side, and the other when your brother takes up the writing side. How do you divide that, or is it based on project to project? So I'm sure Ayalam Jnanam Tamil, when you were writing that, your doctor brother would have got more of that medical component in. So how does that division happen? One, and two. The second part of the question is that for somebody who wants to be a writer, what would be your advice? What would be your practical tips on how do they proceed about it?
To the first question, the advantages are many, starting from the basic logic that two brains are better than one. And we share a great rapport. More than brothers, we are friends. So there's always the other person to keep a check on you. When you meander, when you think of a subject that you shouldn't think of, or when you're going the wrong way while writing, the other person is always there to keep a check on you. And that leads to a lot of conversations, that leads to a lot of discussions, arguments, and brainstorming. But end of the day, the result is always good, because we have learned to see that very objectively. So it's not like who wins, it's basically the film that wins. So luckily we are in that zone now. Earlier it was all about fights and stuff. And the difficult part is again, it's the same, convincing the other person that he's wrong when he thinks that he's right. That's a very difficult part. But that happens only very occasionally, very rarely. So yeah, it's basically someone having to keep a check on your work, someone having to improve on your work. And when that someone happens to be your best friend and brother, nothing like that. So we kind of share the same attitudes, we kind of share the same outlooks, but at the same time, we have our own different tastes, which is good when a discussion happens, because there's a lot of windows get opened. So there's scope for a lot of new things to come in, and we accept the other person's perspective, which helps the movie at the end of the day. And my advice to youngsters, read. That's my first advice. Read a lot. And be ready for a lot of disappointments, because disappointment is the biggest hurdle that you will have to overcome in movie making, in the movie field. You'll be discouraged, you'll be disappointed, you'll be bitter, you'll want to give up. And be cautious of that, be aware of that. This is not going to be a better process. That said, I'm not scaring you by saying that this is a wrong way to go. No, this is a wonderful industry to be in. Make sure that you are here for the right reasons. Make sure that your priorities are right. Make sure that you have read the classics, you have known art. Try exploring all kinds of art, like painting, music, everything. Because cinema is the biggest assimilator of all arts. So you have to be very much aware of what is happening in the art field. And be present and be in the present. There is a danger of regressing, I mean, being regressive when you're writing a movie. Because sometimes the mass movie, the commercial movies demand such regressive nature. So be careful about that, and keep your foot down when you have to do that. And something I have to tell the parents, I'm told that parents are also listening. So youngsters who come to me with their stories, and youngsters who have ambitions in movies, most of them, their grievances are I need to tell the parents that please don't do that. This is a very heartbreaking journey. This could be very heartbreaking, and the journey is a lonely one. Be with your child, because he is undertaking a journey towards something. Just imagine, cinema is a medium where billions of people are coming to theaters and spending time to watch your vision, your attitude, your story. And that is not a small thing. That is a huge responsibility. And if your child is going that way, please encourage him or her. Please be with him or her. Because trust me, there's a whole lot of heartbreak. And one more thing I want to tell the aspiring filmmakers is that ask yourself why you want to be in the industry. We have a lot of them. Why should you be in the industry? What do you have to offer the industry? What do you have to offer cinema? Don't imitate. Imitation is suicide. You are killing yourself, and you are not going to surpass the original by imitating. So find out your uniqueness, discover your uniqueness, follow that, follow the path, stick to your passion. And as I said earlier, don't sulk, don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for that very practical suggestions and words of wisdom. The last question to the last, but not the least panelist. Apu, you're there. This question to you, like we have been talking about finding your niche and working inside that, finding your area of passion. But when it comes to you, you have found out even further. You've gone even further, where you have discovered something which I could call as a micro niche. So how did you reach there, and what has been its ups and downs? And any tips which you wanted to tell, share with the future incoming members of your fraternity?
Yeah, I found that I wanted to do comics because I wanted to tell stories. It was a way to tell my own stories the way I wanted to. I did work in Bollywood in Bombay very briefly to understand that that is not how I want to approach any story whatsoever. And I also see the industry way of creating things. I just found it too cumbersome, too massive to do anything fairly fine. And, there's a lot of, like Sanjay just said, there's a lot of okaying stuff, okaying mediocrity, because that works. And the primary function of this is to sell. Because I came from an economics background, and I'm trying to find this whole art thing. I wanted to know what being an artist is. Maybe I had a bit of a halo around the idea of art. So I started thinking of like, what are you going for? And I'd like to ask this to most of the people who, the kids who are like going to be thinking about it. And even the parents can also become artists now, you don't have to like just stay as parents, like, please come in and be artists, like it's cool. It's not like a fence or anything. But what is it? What is the drive? A lot of people are taken up with immediate attention or fame, or sudden the returns seem to be like required immediately for you to go on, and like Sanjay said, like many of you guys said, that is an important thing to think about. Why are you going after it? Like, do you think you're going to be a rock star, or do you think you're going to be like a sensation like that? That's probably not the way to go for it. Then you might want to look at something else also, as just as a backup, because there are very few artists who really make it. But if you can find the joy in doing it, if you find the joy in making the art and creating the stuff every day, then I think a lot of that payment is already done, and you're not really waiting for that final end goal to like make sense of your life for you. I have this important thing, like, when I was 17 years old, I realized there are two kinds of people in the world. There are the kind of Sachin Tendulkars, and there are the guys who are not Sachin Tendulkars. The guys who are Sachin Tendulkars know by 16 years old if they are Sachin Tendulkars. The rest of you pretty much will have to work hard throughout and maybe not get anything also. But if you can find the joy in doing the work, and that is what I think the passion really means. Like, you're not looking for an end in that itself is the way, if that's what you want to do, then I don't think there should be a question. And like I said, that's how I came in here.
Right, Apu. So that brings us. We are 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes more to wind up the whole session, so we are not taking any more questions. We have a lot of questions, but I'm sure the audience members would have felt good after seeing this session, and probably these questions can be shared, and we will see if we can get the panelists answer them later on. But to wind up this session, I would say that this has been a great afternoon, a time well spent on a Sunday afternoon. Very enlightening to listen to all of you, to understand. I'm sure more parents and children are now convinced that if you choose a job you love, you will never have to work a day in your life. Or rather, how beautiful it would be to do something which you're passionate about and still earning your living, right? And end of the day, I'm sure every parent here wants their children to be happy and contented people. And Ashley, as Ashley very rightly said, whatever you call as success. So success is not only about having huge bank balance or working 24/7 just like an automated machine. Success is also about being happy about, in life. So I think this session would give that message to the audiences here. Thank you, each one of you, gentlemen, for being part of this, this session. Mr. Riaz, Mr. Eldo, Mr. Ashley, Mr. Apupan, Mr. Sanjay, and the whole team of organizers behind this whole thing. Dr. Vineet from MaxEd, Kamal and team, Kamal Vaishag and Abhilash, all of them from Times of India, and of course, Mr. Eldo and team from Vedatma. It has been a great afternoon, and thank you so much from my side for choosing me as a moderator of the session. For me also, I stand quite happy today. And of course, I have been a parent who have never forced my children to do whatever they want. Children to do what I want them to do. I've allowed them to do whatever they want to do, and they're also happy people. And Mr. Eldo, it is my promise that I'll reach out to you very soon with my elder daughter.
Thank you so much.
And over to you, Mr. Vineet, for the final remarks. Dr. Vineet here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Krishna Bhaskar. It has been a wonderful session with wonderful panelists, and your job as a moderator has been superb. And we got a lot of insights to this panel discussion on the different streams, that how you could choose and how you can how to balance between education and balance between education and passion. So thank you very much to all the panelists and to all the moderators. In spite of a busy schedule, you have been here and you have been talking to the audience. Now, we are coming to the end of the Times of India Industry Academia Confluence, and it is the organizers have entrusted the duty of thanking everybody to me. So first of all, a big thanks to Vedatma, who have been a constant pillar of support for us for presenting this whole Industry Academia Conference 2020, because without them, we could not have gone forward on this. So the entire team of Times of India and MaxEd would like to thank Vedatma and Mr. Eldo for their contribution. Thank you very much, sir.
Most welcome.
We would also like to thank WebCardio and Lead College of Management, our sponsors, who have been kind enough to get associated with such a high quality program. Thank you to all the sponsors on behalf of the organizers. I would also thank all the panelists, because in the last 2 days, we have been creating some wonderful content, and we have been getting very good reviews. Like this particular Industry Academia Conference 2020, I think has created new benchmarks in Kerala itself. And because we are on the digital platform, it is going across the world. What I have been told is in just 2 days time, lakhs of people have already viewed this. And because the reach of digital content is going to be high, I think in the days to come also, we'll be seeing more people watching this particular panel discussions. And so thank you to all the speakers who have come across from all over the world. And we had around 16 speakers, top class speakers, experts in their own field. And what we were trying to do with this whole Industry Academia Conference is we're trying to bridge the gap between industry and academia. And that is what MaxEd stands for. MaxEd is an Industry Academia Connect platform. And the moment we talked about this whole concept, and it was jointly curated by Times of India and MaxEd, the moment we talked about this whole concept to Times of India, they were immediately ready. And thank you to Mr. Kamal, to Vaishak, to Abhilash, and everybody in Times of India who have been working very, very hard to make this program a big success. And I also thank all the audience, because we were live on Facebook. There are people on the Zoom platform. Thank you everybody for believing in us and believing in us to think that we stand for bringing out quality programs. And we assure you that in the years to come also, we'll be doing the same thing with same passion. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
You guys.
Thank you very much.